What a great kick.
And Chad Townsend plays on. Plays to the whistle. Kicks away for Valentine Holmes. Penalty again.
Wow.
Chad Townsend, brilliant.
Yes, hello guys, and welcome to the first episode of the Talk of the Town podcast. My name is Chad Townsend. I'll be your host, and I'm very excited to start this podcast. It's been something I've wanted to do for a long time. I've been a pretty big listener to podcasts. We'll get into that a bit shortly. But firstly, before we do start, I do want to touch on the introduction. I do hope you guys liked it. The great man, Ray Warren's with the voiceover, and the great man, when I was growing up, I was obviously a massive rugby league fanatic, and I was just a big fan, and all I wanted to do was play footy, and to be able to be called by the great man Ray Warren, the voice of rugby league, as I'm sure a lot of you do know, it's a little bit surreal, but I think I am very grateful to be in the position that I am today, and obviously the great man has just been inducted into the Rugby League Hall of Fame. So a very fitting award or reward for someone who's given so much to the game. Moving on, guys. Yes, this is the introduction to the Talk of the Town podcast by Chad Townsend. I'll be your host. I am a current athlete at the Cronulla Sharks in the NRL, and I thought to myself, like I said before, I've been a big listener to podcasts over, I guess, the last maybe 2 years. And I thought to myself, why not go out there and start your own? I have been listening to some American athletes over in the NBA who are current superstars, and they have their own podcasts, and that being Lighthearted by Josh Hart, who currently plays for the New Orleans Pelicans, and there was also CJ McCollum, who has the Pull Up Pod, and these guys, current NBA players, discuss all things that are relevant in the game and their views and how they see things, I guess, culture, etc., tech, all those industries, and I guess a little bit. That's what I want to, I guess, introduce a look across the NRL at the moment. And I think this is a space that is just beginning to grow. And I thought to myself, I'd love to get in and give it a go. Media has been a great interest of mine, especially this year. I've started doing a lot more media, a lot more TV, and a lot more appearances on Fox, which I really do enjoy. I do want to follow, this avenue after football, and it is something I'm very interested in. I've started we're going on NRL Tonight on a fortnightly basis every Monday, and I've been really enjoying it. It's live TV, it's talking all things relevant in rugby league, and I'm able to go on and give my opinion from a current player's point of view, which I think is important. I think I'm at a stage now in my career where I really enjoy giving my opinion, and obviously, I guess, there are some contentious issues, that always pop up, but my main focus is always to back the players because I am a current player, and I do want to, I guess, solidify the players, and I think that it's important that all players, regardless of whether you play for the Sharks, you play for the Cowboys, that, we stand united. We just a year or two ago got over a new bargaining agreement with the CBA, RLPA and NRL. We formed a genuine partnership with the game, which can only be, great for all of us moving in the same direction, and I think that's very important. So also some of the other podcasts I do listen to, four of my favorite probably actually. The first one is probably Gary V. Now Gary V's probably been the biggest influence on myself and why I've sort of gone out on a limb in terms of social media and what I put out there, and starting the podcast and also starting to vlog as well. Many of you may have noticed that I've started to vlog on YouTube and put some videos out there about my life, and Gary V was a huge influence on that and why I started to do that. And I'll talk about that a little bit after I talk about the podcast and why I listen to them. But yeah, Gary V is definitely the first one, and others, Tim Ferriss. Now, Tim Ferriss is the author of The 4-Hour Workweek, which I've read, which I don't totally agree with, but I did get some very good, interesting points off it. If you haven't read it, I suggest that you read it. Also, another guy from America, his name's Jocko Willink. Now, he's an American or ex-American SEAL commander. So you think of a Navy SEAL and how hard it is to get into the SEALs, but he trains the SEALs. So he is the big dog. He has just released over the past year or two books, and I've read both of them. They're on leadership, and I really, really did enjoy it, actually. Very, very motivational. He gets out of bed at, I think, 4 or 4:30 every morning, which is not for everybody. But again, it's interesting to hear the perspective from someone from that field, and I think there's definitely a lot to learn from him. And that's, again, Jocko Willink, his name is. And also Tony Robbins. Now, I'm sure many of you know Tony Robbins and the great motivational speaker, travels the world doing talks. And he recently done a podcast with Conor McGregor, which I thought was outstanding. If many of you know Conor, you know the type of personality he is. He's out there, he's confident, but he really opened up to Tony and gave a different perspective to his business life and what he does away from the octagon. So, pardon me, it did express, why he got into his new whiskey company and what he sees for that in the future. And I thought that was really interesting because, obviously people identify Conor McGregor as just this MMA athlete, but behind the scenes, he's setting up processes or investing his money to become a successful businessman. And there's going to be one day where he's not going to be able to fight anymore, and he'll be able to fall back on some of these investments that he's made. So not only is he a top MMA fighter, but also a top businessman, and I think that's outstanding. So back on the vlog subject, which I briefly touched on before. So I started YouTube probably 12 months ago, where I bought a camera and I decided to document my journey and my family's journey. And I didn't actually know what I was doing. I didn't know how to edit. I didn't know what software to edit on. I just was a huge fan of, filming and documenting. And I guess that comes from being a 90s kid. I grew up in the era of Jackass and Johnny Knoxville and all the boys. And we used to get the old camcorder, the one we used to hold in one arm and put the eye down and look into it. And we used to try and make our own stunts, make bike jumps, go down the hills on skateboards, put wheels on couches and go down the hill. And that was a bit of my childhood, and we had such a good time. And I guess that love of, hobby of wanting to film and vlog comes from back then. And I still have that hobby now. And I think it's a great way for me to create families of myself and my family. So when my daughter actually grows up, she can actually see some videos of her mum and dad when she was born, when she was 1, 2, etc. So I think we are moving into a world where obviously cameras are so much more accessible with the iPhone, etc. But for me, vlogging has been a wonderful journey. I've really enjoyed it. I get a lot of great feedback on YouTube from people who really enjoy my videos. So my plan is to continue to vlog and upload some videos and put the content out there that I can control. I think quite often, athletes do the genuine interview where, whether that's pre or post game, and it's quite hard not to throw a cliche out, if I'm honest. And I'm always conscious of it. I don't like using cliches for interviews, but with a vlog, you can put out content or things that I can control, and I think that's the most exciting bit, where I control the whole thing from start to finish: filming, production, editing, uploading, what social channels I uploaded on, etc. And that's been the biggest thing that I've enjoyed. I've got a friend of mine who has helped me with the editing process, and I think I still have a fair bit to learn in that space with the editing, because I mean, I look around at some of the YouTube videos out there and they're unbelievable. Some of the vloggers, some of the cinematic B-roll, how they film it, it is truly amazing. So, guys, back on the topic, I guess, of the introduction of the podcast. This is the Talk of the Town podcast, and what is my vision for this podcast? Well, basically, I want it to be an inclusive space for everybody. So by that, I mean, I really do want to create a little community, and obviously my background is rugby league, and this podcast will be a lot rugby league based, but I do have a lot of interest outside of rugby league, and that means I want to, delve into that and I guess see my contacts and people from different backgrounds, different experiences, people outside of rugby league, and talk to them. Like, I'd love to talk to some high performers and see what makes them tick and see what got them to where they are today. Do they have habits, routines? Are they daily, weekly, monthly, yearly? Because I think we can all learn something from everybody, and I think if you're open to, listening and learning and wanting to get better at your job, whether you're an athlete, whether you're a tradie, whether you're a photographer, it doesn't matter. I think if we can be open and build relationships and be an inclusive community. If you guys have any questions at all that you would like answered on the podcast, please make sure you drop a comment on one of my social channels and direct it to the podcast, because I'd love to answer it. I want you guys to be included in that, and I want to make that, if there's one point you get out of this today with the Talk of the Town podcast, it is that it's for all of us. It's not just, come on and listen, because I want to, like I said, create a little community where we can all benefit, and I think that's important. So I also want to, I guess, interview some teammates, and I've got some great teammates who have already decided or have already said yes to coming on the podcast. So I look forward to that. I look forward to talking about some stories from the 2016 season when we won the premiership. Now, I have a few belters, which I'll wait and tell you guys, but stay tuned for that, because there's some exciting times ahead with those stories. I think you guys will really, really enjoy it. So that's pretty much about it, guys. Like I said, this is the introduction for today. I did want to give you guys an insight into what my plans are for this podcast. I'm really excited for it. I'm going to go out on a little bit of a limb here, and I thought to myself, I'm a great listener of podcasts. I love talking. I love, doing the media, and I'm excited for it. I'm going to put myself out there and just have a bit of fun. Like I said, I want you guys involved, and if we can all create this little community where, we're trying to get better, involved with a little mix of storytelling, a bit of laughs, some humor, some fun, and I think that's, a great space to be involved in. So I appreciate you listening to this first episode, the introduction. Please stay tuned for the first episode after the introduction story, because it's going to be an interesting one. So I appreciate that, guys. Thanks very much, and we'll see you soon. Bye.